Dobar dan, good afternoon, especially to the panelists we have today, to members of GZS and members of BSCC. Welcome to this afternoon, Tea with Reason, where we will be speaking about the UK as an interesting trade partner for Slovene companies. Before we start, let me remind you that you cannot go live and speak, but you can ask a question by going into Q&A on the menu bar. We also received some questions from you in advance, and we will try to answer all those questions during this time. And let me kindly ask all the panelists also to mute yourselves now. We will start with a presentation, which I hope that you can see. Let me check this. Let me first present our panelists today. We have Andy Hunt with the Pivots and Rob Holland, who are export experts who've been living in Slovenia for a long time, working for Slovenian exporting companies. And we'll be presenting today on how to enter the UK market. We have Andrej Poklič, who's the CEO of GKN Driveline Slovenia, which is a multinational British company, also present here with a manufacturing unit. We have Sheldon Cordell, who's chairman at Jolson Law, who will be coming in live from London. We also have Matej Rogel, who's Director for International Trade at GZS. And this webinar will take 1 hour. With questions, we will try to keep 20 minutes at the end for questions. Let me start with a few slides just to go over the main numbers, the main trade statistics with the EU. As you see, the UK trades 1.4 trillion with the world, half of it with EU and half of it with non-EU. Let me go to the next slide and show you out of total exporting markets that the UK has, number one is with the United States. So most of its exports go into the United States. And then with other EU countries and China. If we combine all the EU countries, it's obviously more than the US. So the EU definitely is a huge trade partner for the UK. If I go briefly to import markets, we have Germany as number one, importing into the UK. The United States is second. And then we again have EU countries. So here we again see how relevant the future relationship between the UK and the EU is. Then if I stop briefly at what goods the UK trades, we've got the main automotive, pharmaceutical, oil, and aircraft industry. And we can share these slides. We will share all these slides from today with you, with all the participants. Then if I briefly stop at the services, the UK definitely is very strong in financial services, and this is definitely one of the key points also in the EU-UK talks in the future trade relationship. If we then go to obviously the situation that we have at the moment, the COVID-19 impact. Just if we look at the fresh statistics from PwC and the World Bank, the GDP in the UK is projected to fall from 5 to 10% in the next year, and then stabilize in 21. And about 3/4 of all the firms in the UK have some kind of furloughing of their staff, which means in Slovene, čakanje na domu. So basically, it's a really big number. I think it's even bigger than in Slovenia. And the UK is about 10 to 14 days behind Slovenia in the COVID crisis, which also shows that not many firms have applied for some kind of loan scheme yet. On the next slide, I would like to ask now Matej Rogel, who's Director for International Trade at GZS, to come in and comment a little bit on the relationship, on the trade relationship between Slovenia and the UK. Izvolite, Matej. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, you told us to mute us, so I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you, Barbara. I hope you hear each other now. Thank you, Barbara, and the British Slovenian Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event and inviting us to take part. I would like to have also a few words, not only on direct bilateral relations between the UK and Slovenia, but also in the COVID terms in general, because I think it reflects a little bit what is going on. In fact, I see this webinar as a kind of a reflection of what is happening with the economy and life in general. Is COVID-19 changing the direction or just the velocity of global economic development? And what are the trends that it has triggered, and where will the economies go? As I searched around, the general opinion of analysts is that first, economies will tend to become more resilient. The supply chains will become less complex, shorter, and above all, local. It's called deglobalization. So the mantra of global value chains is silenced now. We're probably astonished at how fragile this world is. And the second, the technological innovation will become even more rapid. We will accelerate the automation and robotization of production processes. There will be more innovation in biotech, telemedicine, online learning, remote work. And we can also expect centralized digital currencies to emerge. And third, the debt burdens are growing. The actions of the states are worth 5,000 billion euros or more. We will have to redefine what is a sustainable debt level. But the pandemic is actually not changing the path of global development. It's just accelerating the trends that were already there. So in that sense, we could say that we are well off, but there are threats. Till now, 80 countries have introduced export prohibitions or restrictions as a result of the pandemic, not to mention the restrictions on movement. And the dependence on imports of manufactured goods started to undermine the economies. So economic recovery is therefore likely to go through domestic markets rather than global. So if the age of protectionism is ahead, then the Brexit is our least problem. In fact, it should have happened sooner and give us a chance to practice the new reality. And how Slovenian and UK trade relations will respond to this new reality. Till now, we have reached over €1 billion of exchange in commodities plus 400 million in services. And this is the yearly number. The most exchanged goods are medicaments, cars, petroleum oils, aluminium plates, and construction machinery. So we have also some hidden champions on Slovenian side, such as prefabricated buildings, high-end housing estates, and furniture. And personally, I like the most the exporter of delicious ice cream, which takes number 7 position in Slovenian exports to UK. And trends are difficult to predict. Where should we focus and invest our effort and money now? The obvious losers on both sides are aerospace, automotive, and tourism industries. The winners might be health sector, door-to-door delivery, and of course, public administration, by simply doing what they do best, acting too late or acting wrong. I thank you for bearing with me and leave the word to the others, to the experts who know how to understand and know how to win the British market in this or any other circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matej. Let me repeat one sentence which I found interesting. You said, Brexit is the least of our problems now. It should have been practiced for this situation. We spent about 3 years talking about Brexit, and you were a part of a lot of our live roundtables as well. Now we have a completely different situation, but nevertheless, the UK still remains a strong market also for Slovenian companies, big potential market. We should still explore it. I will let you tell us a little bit more about this. Let me just say that Andy has 20+ years experience in exporting, worked for big Slovenian brands like Gorenje, Intralighting, and is an expert for exporting in the UK, France, and the Middle East. Okay, word is yours, Andy, and you can share your presentation now.
Microphone. Turn on microphone, please.
Unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Matej, for that. And good afternoon, listeners. I will do a whirlwind or tornado tour of the UK very, very quickly, as I do believe out of chaos and disruption comes opportunity. And I think Slovenia, as a small, fast-acting country, is very well placed to grab these opportunities. So I will do very, very quickly the UK and show you why I believe some of the excuses that Slovene companies, why they don't export, why they should, the areas in the UK, and a quick 5-step inroad into accessing the UK. So just bear with me one moment. I also strongly believe, so my name's Andy Handvoldepivets, Coffee Cup Consulting, with my business partner, Rob Howland. We help to advise Slovene companies how to internationalize their business. Today is efficient entry into the UK marketplace. So there's a lot of doom and gloom around. Don't panic. We've had time to reassess. We've had time to think about what's going on in the marketplace. And we've spoken to many companies, and many have a Slovene uniqueness. I think in the global marketplace, you have to be unique. You have to have a phenomenal story, and you have to have a good price and a good quality. Many of the companies we speak to have exactly that, price to quality ratio. So a great product, very good quality at a competitively priced. So it's a real competitive cost advantage. This is huge. If you can be between 5 to 10%, let's say, I don't like to use the word cheaper, but more competitive than your competitors, the big players, you've got a major advantage. Slovenia's got really smart R&D in engineering. This is very, very useful in terms of product development, product extension, changing the products, because the business is so fast and goes so quickly. You need a very good and competent R&D in engineering. Slovenes have this. Low cost production, again, a major cost advantage. Salaries, unit cost, machinery cost, not just in Slovenia, but also you might have some production costs in Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia. Make incoming parts which are all assembled in Slovenia. So that's also a huge advantage. I love the unique design and concept. I find Slovene companies often have the ability to make it smaller, lightweight, more compact, and more user-friendly. So again, a great advantage. And really think that you can become a real EU alternative supplier. I've spoken to many CEOs and buyers who've said to me, goodness, that Slovene company, we wish we'd met them before, because they are a real alternative supplier to the big boys who are very, maybe they're big, non-flexible, corkscrew pricing all the time, pushing you on price. So I find that's a real advantage. But what's stopping those maybe smaller, medium-sized companies exporting to the UK? They seem to be a bit scared of the UK. I've never quite understood what. So we'll look at some of the reasons why the company, you may have thought, well, I'm going to go into the UK. Why will I not do it? I think that there's some barriers. The cost, assessing the cost of exporting. You may not know exactly what the bottom line is on your P&L or your financials. Staffing and recruitment, yeah, sure, it's a big one. You might need some new people, but I don't think, not necessarily. Lack of knowledge, how to do it, where to start. Assessing the competition. Maybe you don't want to assess the competition. That scares you a bit, but it's a real must, and we'll come to that later. Time to understand the market. Do you have the capacity and the capability and the time and resources to understand the marketplace? So what's stopping you? Maybe there are excuses, I don't know. We've often heard companies saying, oh, my product and service is not transportable or can't be exported. Rubbish. If Airbus can transport a 50-ton A380 wing to Toulouse, then there's no reason why any Slovene company can't actually export its product worldwide. Local or regional, yeah, maybe, but that's down to your company policy, and maybe you're looking more east and not west, then fair enough. No demand, I'm not sure. There's always a demand for a product, and if you're selling in Slovenia, maybe Croatia, there's safe markets such as Austria, Italy, Germany, there's no reason why you can't sell in the UK. Relevant only in Slovenia. I've never found a product yet that's only relevant to Slovenia. Someone might pick me up on this, I don't know, I haven't found one yet. UK market too mature and saturated, possibly, but I worked for a company not so long ago in a very competitive sector. It was actually the automotive refinishing sector, and in 2 years, they generated €500,000 of revenue in a highly competitive market with some of the leading global paint and lacquer manufacturers in the world. So it is possible. So we've had time to think of it. So it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. I think you need to rethink. I think you need to reassess, redeploy, and reactivate your resources. So why should you export? Hey, it's great to be an international exporter. It's proud. It's faster and sustainable growth. It's the only way to do it. I don't see another way. New opportunities and global contacts goes without saying. My competitors are also exporting. This is interesting. Many people say, or companies we talk to say, oh, our competitors, no, they're not doing it. Oh, for sure they're doing it, and they're probably doing it faster and quicker than you are. So remember, your competitors are doing it. Exciting prospects for growth. And I like the mantra and the adage, you know, you've got to act regionally, but think globally. So UK in a nutshell, it's good to understand where the action is in the UK. You've got London, the southeast, London, Cambridge, Oxford. So financial, fintech, biosciences down in the southeast. And you've got the Midlands, Birmingham, Milton Keynes, heavy engineering, automotive. You've got Manchester as well, very, very up and coming for technology, for media, part of the Northern Powerhouse. You've got Newcastle, Sheffield, manufacturing, Edinburgh, very good for design, financial, technology. So it's good to get an understanding where the actions are taking place in the UK. This I like very much. It's UK foreign direct investment, and it shows that the #1 areas or sectors. So you can see we have software, business and consumer services, all the way down to food and drink, life sciences, automotive, wholesale. And many of the companies that Rob and I have spoken to over the last couple of years have been real gems, actively involved in AI, fintech, deep tech. Deep tech is substantial innovation and technology, clean energy, 3D printing, smart metering. Fantastic companies who fit perfectly into the UK structure of investment and growth. Here's the UK fintech. Look at the comparisons between the UK, Germany and France. There's some huge names here, especially peer-to-peer lending. We have Amazon that just invested €500 million in Deliveroo. So as Matej was saying, so deliveries. There's real bricks and mortar investment. If you go from the southeast, you've got Southampton, Fawley Waterside, 1 billion GBP. Advanced manufacturing, energy, components, automotive. Cambridge, you've got life sciences, R&D. You've got investment in the north, you've got Wirral water projects. Again, commercial, energy components, education, R&D. Media City UK, Salford, Manchester, 300 million just in pure digital media, commercial and retail. Investment all the way up to Scotland. Glasgow, Advanced Manufacturing District. You've got Edinburgh, Bio Quarter Project, £400 million. There's a lot going on. And what I was also very interested in is what are the fastest 10 growing industries? And this is just really as a matter of interest, immersive technology. So that's virtual reality, augmented reality, HMD, head module displays. We've got CRM system providers. That really surprised me. So Intrix, Salesforce, online food and ordering, peer-to-peer lending platforms, app development, non-dairy milk production, again, soybeans, social media services, serviced office, online men's clothing. Why? I have no idea. So I think the UK covers most of the industry sectors that the UK companies, SME and large ones, could actually attempt to go into and to break down which industry, which sector, and then do all the research. And I'll very quickly go through the 5 steps to analyze and how to enter the UK market efficiently. Some of you know how to do it, some of you probably have done it in the past, but I'm trying to refresh your look at the UK market and say, hey, maybe it's something we should look at in more detail and offer maybe a few resources and maybe 1 or 2 people in the company to start looking at it. So it's very important to understand the market. What's the total value of the market? Is it 1 million, 100 million? Who knows? It's good to get an idea. How is the market structured, good or bad? In the UK, the banking industry and the insurance industry are very, very, very strong. So coming back to the car refinishing products, the insurance industry has 70% locked of the market. Because when you crash your car, it has to be painted. They will tell you which dealer to go to. They will tell you what paint to use. They will tell you this, that, and the other. So you've got 30% remaining. 30%, there's all the other players fighting for independence, the marketplace. So understand what the market is. What market share do you realistically hope to build? That gives you a projection of your financials, the bank. What are the market barriers? Again, standards and certification. There's the big elephant in the room is Brexit. Who knows what's going to happen? So with COVID and Brexit, you'll probably need different types of certification and standards, whether it's electrical, whether it's, I know for intralighting, there were different standards as to heat and flame resistant material. You have the EU standard, but also you have the British standard. So be aware that you may have additional standards, additional costs. What are the associated costs? Remember, there's the English Channel, so that adds a considerable amount of cost to the ferry passage to the UK, and then especially onward to Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland if you're going there as well. So be very careful of that. There's also certain products are not allowed on passenger ferries, so you're only allowed to go via freight services or ports. And we had one instance where we had to reroute the whole trunk via Belgium to be put on a specialised ferry that then went to Felixstowe, not Dover. So just bear these in mind, and it could save you a lot of time. Research your competition. Who are the main competitors? What pricing and position do they have? And what product specifications do they have compared to yours? You'll be very surprised. It might open up a huge gaping hole as to their problems, where you can find a niche, because Slovene companies will act more than niche because they don't have the mass. So find that niche, but also understand your true value and competency. It also might be quite an eye-opener for you, and you might see gaps where you're better, but also fill holes where you could actually do better and where you have a problem. So define the quality and uniqueness and added value that a product will bring to the marketplace. It can be market research from, this is a brand, Prada, compared to all the others. And we have at the bottom here, we have this is CRM comparison matrix, and you have tables, for example. So really spend time researching your competitors. Look at the distribution channels. Your product is great, your distribution strategy is not, you will fail. How many good companies have produced great products but got distribution wrong? Do you remember Dropbox? Disappeared in 2 years because they weren't able to adapt to the ever-changing distribution. They went from standard web marketing 2.0 to viral and then completely collapsed. So Intralighting, for example, a great company in Nova Gorica, does lighting systems. It has 9 different verticals or 9 distribution channels into the UK. Get these wrong, you will fail, and it might get messy. If you get them right, you will be very successful. So in the end, they were out of 9, there was only 4 that were really suitable for the that particular type of product and industry. So choose carefully, know your expected margins per channel, learn to change and vary and adapt to different distribution channels, particularly going from offline to online, i.e. digital. Find the best route to market. Cut out part of the distribution process if you need to. Don't be afraid to go direct. For example, if the distribution chain does not bring any value to it, try and cut it out where you can. And here's a good example of trying to cut out the UK importer, UK national distributor, and go regionally. Be careful, but it's something you need to look at. So the next is really research your potential clients. This is the real donkey work, the hard work, no shortcuts. This particular example took 3 months. It can take 150 hours. It can take 3 months, 6 months. But be very clear, garbage in, garbage out. So get the right information first, and you will not waste your time and call people who have no interest in your product or have no no interest. So get it right. It will save you a lot of time and it will be very worthwhile. Look at Companies House, similar to IPES. It gives you all the information of companies. Do they exist? What's the financial insight? Any problems? Who the directors are? What do they own? Look at their website, P&L. Look at their financials. Look at their stock, their debtors, their creditors. How much cash do they have in the bank? Really good information as to whether you're targeting the right potential clients. So research accurate and up to date, basis for all future market growth, and also you could segment these clients later. So especially for mailings and promotionals and visits. So my advice is really spend time getting it right the first time. And really finally, clearly communicate your product. We find this with many companies. They're very technical, they're very engineering, they're very mechanical, and they cannot get that message of to what the problem they're solving or what their product is doing. And you know, you've got to speak to some of the buyers like they're 6-year-olds. You've got to get that message across in 60 seconds or 90 seconds. Really understand what the message is, what's the story and what the cause is. Clearly define the problem and how your solution will solve that problem painlessly, effectively, and at little or no cost. And stress the unique and innovative benefits of your product. So many companies kind of get this wrong and don't define it clear enough. There's a lot of competition out there, so be unique and find that niche entrance and see that 1 or 2 advantages will bring you the business and kick that other business out. So understand the buying process and thought behavior. This is also very important. I've had so many arguments of CEOs who they said, you know, Andy, I've sent the product production sheet. I've sent everything, and after 2 days they want a reply. Well, I'm saying it doesn't work like that. Often they have set standards. They have maybe a commission that will go through all new products because you're not the only one wanting to get into their company. So it can take 1 or 2 months. So understand the buying process, because don't bombard buyers or CEOs with incessant emails and phone calls. You'll just frustrate them and you'll end up in the bin. So clients will not come to you. Many companies seem to think that this will happen. They will not come to you, even though you may think you've got the greatest idea in the world. Clients do not come to you. That was 15 years ago. It doesn't happen anymore. So invest in face-to-face meetings with potential clients. And a 1-hour meeting, I always say, is worth 1,000 emails. And British companies really appreciate your on-site visits. Many will say, wow, you've taken the time to come and see me. You must be serious and I like you. So they need to see that trust. They need to trust you, your company, and your product. So that's it, folks. I would just say research, create your own opportunity, just go and do it. Sit back and see if the UK is really for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. You mentioned a lot of opportunities, a lot of new projects that the British government is planning, that it started planning with the new Conservative government of Boris Johnson. Yet you also mentioned some obstacles like transport costs, also Brexit. If you could pinpoint 3 reasons for Slovene companies to go to the UK, what would they be?
I think first and foremost, I think more probably on the COVID side, I think the supply chain is looking now for regional suppliers. And as I said in my presentation, EU suppliers. So they are looking for EU-based supply chain, which is faster and is not so reliant on the Chinese supply chain model. So that's the first point. And I think UK companies will start also to look more central and eastern and east countries to really find that quality price ratio that Slovenia is really good at doing. So I really see Brexit as an opportunity, not in every single industry, but to replace existing ones and to prove that, you know, Slovenia can come back on the world global scene and be seen as a real supplier of great quality products that maybe wasn't so known 2 or 3 years ago. So I would really focus on those couple of points. Make some noise, go and see them and tell them where you are, you know, you're here and you're here to stay. And yes, Slovenia will remain part of the EU. But I would stick to that, because I think it's like a drop of water. I think a drop of water always finds the easiest and most efficient way out to its destination. And I think business people and businesses in Slovenia are very smart and will find a way to overcome any obstacle. And I think that flexibility and smallness and reactivity of the Slovene marketplace will be a key factor in winning that future business in the UK.
So flexibility, smallness, and reactivity. Great.
Yeah.
Let me just remind the participants listening to this webinar that you can post your questions in Q&A in the menu bar, and we can answer those questions for you. Now let me move to our next panelist, which is someone who has a lot of experience working in British companies and in living and working in the UK. Andrej Poklič is the CEO of GK Driveline, and Andrej, you were also living in Birmingham for many years. You know how the British culture works. And if we forget for 2 minutes about COVID-19 and go back to normal times, what would you say to Slovenian companies about why to come to the UK? You know, how to enter the UK market?
Hi, afternoon. I was scared not seeing automotive business on the Andes list before about the growing industry, but nevertheless, automotive business in UK, it's about 1.5 million cars each year produced, and I'm talking about the passenger cars and the environment I know. And to my knowledge, that's the 5th or 6th biggest automotive business in Europe. So after Germany, Spain, France, Italy, it's UK. So it's quite a big proportion of cars produced in UK. And also we should know or remind us that 8 out of 10 cars produced in UK are exported to Europe or to the rest of the world. To Europe, more than half of this export. We should know that in UK, if you want to become an important player or become known in automotive business, you need to stick to JLR or Tata Group. It's 1/3 of total car business. It's running out of this group. So if you want to do something with the car assembly, you need to be part of this environment. Maybe for Slovenians, it's not so known that part of big players like JLR and others, Toyota, Honda, and the UK, it's producing about 2.7 million engines, so it's a big engine manufacturer, which means also exported to Europe and the rest of the world. I think if neglect the other smaller, and I'm talking about Rolls-Royce or Aston or other, where maybe some specific components may be also introduced, and but it's on the mass production. I think JLR is important with R&D and headquartered in UK. But if you want to work with others, you need to enter to UK via Brussels or Paris or somewhere in Germany. Talking about Toyota, Nissan, and others. So I think, as was said before, good quality, proper cost structure, openness and respectful, and I think Slovenian and also working in the automotive business, it's respect knowledge, the respect innovations, and respect proactiveness. So don't wait that, as Andy said before, customer will come and visit you and ask you for your products.
And if we go back to reality of today, could you give us a little bit of a scope of the situation in the automotive industry now due to COVID-19? GK Driveline is a tier 1 supplier to a lot of the big names in the car industry. What's the situation? What's happening with your manufacturing around the world? Where's demand? What are your expectations, you know, for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, that situation is something unique, and we are not, we have never had this experience to stay and wait. You know, this period of waiting, it's long now. It's weeks, and it's still some weeks to go. As we see different situation from countries to countries, like Italy starting first and then others are following, and UK, it's clearly one of the latest in Europe with all the measures. We see today from April point of view, we almost produce or sell nothing. In May, we see some early birds starting production. UK, it's not, unfortunately, among those. And for UK business, we see end of May as a first production activities. I hope nothing will go wrong in that. It's important to see as well, I think that this ramp up will not be fast, and it's quite unpredictable. We need to understand that supply base, it's empty, or it's somehow waiting to get signals from the final customers. And in between the last couple of weeks or months, some of suppliers may get some difficulties. So we need to be really careful if we start to resupply to customers, how long and how healthy we will continue with this business. Looking for the EDI numbers, it's one part of the story, but also I think we need to follow, and we are following the country specifics. As I said before, UK is behind for about 10 days, 2 weeks, and the first production activities we expect for the next week across the UK plants, and also let's say JLR plants across Europe.
So fingers crossed that things will also pick up in the UK in the next 10 to 14 days, and you will be able to get more orders also from them. If we go to the next obstacle that was already mentioned today, and that has been neglected a little bit in the last 2 months, is Brexit. So last week, the EU and the UK started negotiating again. Are continuing to negotiate on the future trade agreement. In the meantime, the UK is also negotiating with the US on a new trade agreement, quite ambitiously. Andrei, what do you expect will happen after Brexit? It looks like the British government at the moment is quite strict in their ambition to deliver Brexit by the end of this year, which means they do not plan to extend this transition period. The question is, will there be enough time for these negotiations, considering that Covid-19 has stepped in? What are your expectations in the automotive industry? We saw before on the slide that I presented that Germany is #1 importer into the UK. It's probably majority of that is the automotive industry. And the UK is #1 trading partner of the EU. What are your expectations, for January next year?
It's quite hard to predict. I mean, Brexit itself was quite difficult in the last period of time, and now with COVID, I think the game has changed a bit. At least what I think will change a bit, different opinions, it's excess of capacities. I think that automotive business will not recover to the numbers a couple of months ago. We have seen already last year some decline in the market, and on top of that, now it's COVID. Our prognosis for this year, it's let's say 30-35% down to what we experienced last year. I think this excess of capacity and what was said before already, the reorganizing supply chain base will also significantly play the role in the agreements between the countries or between EU and UK. I think hard to say if there are some agreements possible to the end of the year or not, but I think clearly we'll find a way how to trade between. And I think that it's not the key to me. Maybe I'm a bit far, but it's not the key what agreement we'll have, but it's more what's the demand on the market, overall worldwide market.
So it's the demand that's more crucial at this moment.
And excess of capacity, all face, yeah.
Okay, if we go back to the business culture, Andy, you know, you know how the Slovenes work. You've worked for big Slovenian exporters. What do you think Slovene companies should bear in mind in terms of business culture when going into the UK?
I think that the UK doesn't have, I would say, any kind of real specifics. You know, I think like any country, you've got to be on time. As Andrei said, you've got to be respectful. They like to see that you understand the product inside out. They're always on time. So in very generally easy to work with. Quite predictable, I would say. Yeah, these kind of things. I've easier, let's say, I would say, than other European countries. I won't name any names, but yeah, easy. Just be respectful, on time, supply, deliver on time. They like quick service, like we all do. So you know, really plan your customer service, your back office correctly. They do like to be called by the close of day, so by 5 o'clock. So if you do say, yeah, I'll call you back by today, call them back, because they will expect it. So just be professional, be proficient, reactive, which I find most of the Slovene companies are. So just bear that in mind. The market is mature. It's been around for a long time. So you've got to be really, really professional. Otherwise, you know, as I was saying before, there's a lot of competition. So they will simply go and find somebody else. And yeah, they're quite pragmatic. They're quite reserved. They're quite conservative. As you know, Brits will always line up and queue up for a bus. But on the other hand, they'll also chuck you out as fast as they got you in. So be a little careful, and don't promise anything that you can't supply. That goes without saying. So delivery, quick communication, go and see them, as I said, and you'll do great. And show them Slovenia. I often take a brochure of Slovenia with me. Show them where it is, show them the beautiful country, and because many will not have been to Slovenia or they don't know it. So bring your product brochure and also bring a brochure of Slovenia. It's got beautiful green photos, and it just kind of makes them think, wow, it's a beautiful place. If it's a beautiful place, nice person, good product. It's all about the approach, and it's all about that impression. And I think Slovenia can really do that very, very well.
Yeah, it's true. We also find it much easier to work with people who have been to Slovenia, who know Slovenia.
Sure.
And we have a question for you, Andy. I don't know if you can see in the Q&A from David Rosman. Andy, thank you for a really great insight. Could you please draft the ideal scenario in collaboration between your consulting team and exporting company? We work in IT professional service segment.
So I can't actually see the question, but just show me. So
they're looking for an ideal scenario in collaboration between your consulting team and their company who are in IT professional services.
Yeah, I mean the best would honestly just to meet. And as I said, we need to reassess the routes to market. That's the important place, how to get distribution, so how to get your product to the UK market, and that's going to vary. So the ideal collaboration would be, it's always good to meet. You know, we meet and we chat and we brainstorm the product or the service, and very quickly, in an hour or two, it's amazing how many new ideas come up, how many new ways of looking at the business comes up. So we always say to companies, try and take your head out of the sand for a bit, because we're all so busy. We're very blinded like a racehorse. So it's sometimes good to step back. So we like to meet with a company face to face. They can meet us, we meet them, and say, look, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And then together we work on a actually strategic offensive plan as to how to enter the UK. I think that's the best way of going about it, because sometimes it might not be possible. Sometimes, yes, it is. 9 times out of 10, yes, there's a great plan. And it's always good to have that external help. and that maybe that management and experience to say the UK, let's do it like this. So let's meet, let's do a plan, and then it's a win-win for both. But I think many companies do need that external help and understanding and business experience, more to avoid the pitfalls than anything else. If you can avoid the pitfalls, you will avoid a lot of costly mistakes. So meet up, discuss, you know, we could, it's all that's free basically. And then we put it in phases of 3 months to 6 months to 9 months. Remember, it's going to take at least a year or two, maximum, let's say minimum 2 years to enter into a new marketplace. So it is a long-term process, but I think it's the best way of doing it. It'll avoid a lot of unnecessary costs, and you'll get a company that understands the UK. And we're ambassadors to the UK because we are both Brits, so that also really helps.
Thank you. I just got information that our speaker from the UK has some technical issues. So Sheldon, unfortunately, won't be able to speak, but we will send his presentation also on FDI together with all the presentations. And I have a comment here from Penny Make, who's also one of our partners in the UK, just confirming what you said, Andy, and adding another thing to remember when dealing with British customers. Reply quickly to emails and make sure they don't think of Slovenia as being Eastern Europe. It's Central Europe between Austria and Italy. True. Let's also take some other questions that we received from participants prior to this webinar. And if Rob is still here, Rob, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, we cannot see you. Can you put your video on?
It should be.
Okay, we have a question here. We have a company in the UK that is currently in dissolved status and would like to raise it back to working condition. What is the cost of this procedure? Is there any thought or concern about this?
Right. Well, I actually know a little bit about this because I was sort of involved in setting the original company up in the UK. There are a number of issues and questions that need answering. The first thing is, yes, it can be brought back to life. £100 and filling in a form R01 could be enough to bring a company back to life. You submit that to Companies House, which is IPES effectively, and they can bring that back to life. Issues to consider. Why was the company dissolved in the first place? Because if it was because you didn't submit accounts or reports when you should, you're going to have to submit those before you can bring it back to life. If there are any outstanding fines or monies owed, they have to be paid before you can bring it back to life. And one more little thing to trip you up, if anyone has decided to use your company name since it's been dissolved, you'll need a new company name, even though the company comes back to life. So there are a number of issues to look at. In looking at those, you might decide, you know what, let's just set a new company up and avoid all of that. Because if you're going to be going in perhaps with different directors, what does it matter? You know, set a new company up. So these are the issues you need to consider. It needs a little bit of research. The other question is, how are you going to set that company up and for what purpose? So are you going to look just to have a UK company so that you can put it on literature, on the website and the like, or are you actually going to want to operate that company with staff from the UK? Whatever happens, you will need a friendly accountant somewhere in the UK who can submit your accounts and do all of the work for you. So there's going to be a cost there. If you choose the right one, he'll probably be able to give you the best advice before you launch in to whether you set a new company up or you simply bring the old one back to life and what the situation is there. So, you know, as with all questions, there's never a simple, it's this much, it's that much, it's that much. No, there's a little bit more to consider to understand how you're going to do it and what is the best way to do that.
Then there's a company asking, I'm looking forward to acquiring some insights on how to find potential clients in B2B segment that are interested in our remote professional IT services. Either you or Andy, what would you suggest?
I can carry on. We've been doing something fairly similar for a customer here in Slovenia, both in France and in the UK. And the first thing is to define what you are actually offering. What's your sweet spot? What is it that you are going to deliver or you believe? Then it's a case of really going to the market, looking at who you might sell to, but at the same time, who else is selling? Who is doing what you're doing already? How well are they doing it? How expensively or cheaply are they doing it? And really then look to see how to go in. It could be that you are looking to offer either subcontract services. You can either sell direct to your customers or you can sell through someone as a lower cost source of that product for a customer who already exists. And the differences there are, if you're going to go direct to the customers, you've got to spend the money and have the infrastructure to support them directly. If you use a channel and find someone whose services you can improve or add to, they already have the customer base, so your time to market can be much quicker, but your margin that you're going to make is going to be less because you're going to have to charge a lower cost to a sub-supplier. So it isn't, you really have to look at what the company here providing services from Slovenia, how they want to operate, what they want to offer, and then try and match that with the best way to do that into the UK market, whether it's direct or through partners or as a sub-supplier to a company who already exists providing similar services.
Yeah, I'd also like to add the UK market is actually very vibrant for LMS and e-learning. I think it's very important to understand what are your clients, because if you've got a big client like TSB or a bank, the number of users you're going to have is in the thousands. And if you go to a smaller SME, you might have 50, 100 users. So you've got to look at what, as Rob said, what's the product offering, and can you supply 1,000 people on e-learning? So that's very important. And also you've got to look at which segments. Like, so I believe, I don't know the product completely inside out, but you've got corporate, you've got finance, you've got NHS, you've got NGOs, you've got a whole range of different channels and verticals. So as I said previously, look at what position you have. Do you have, is it cloud operated? Is it offline? Is it off the shelf product? So you need to look at the product and the market fit, and which companies you are going to target in the UK. And as Rob says, I think if it's purely more of a software development company, then yeah, join with the big players. Because I know in the UK I think there's 20 players already, big players in e-learning and LMS, which is learning management system. So, and there's also, I think, a lot of competition coming in from the US. So you've got the competitor, you've got the competitive aspect. So what can you offer that's going to differentiate? Is it off the shelf? Because it can become quite complex. So if you are good, join up with one of the leaders and say, okay, we'll do the software development for you on a very complex internal corporate training session for a big bank. That's another revenue stream and another aspect of how to enter the UK market.
Yeah. We'll take one last question, which is, when will air travel to the UK from Slovenia and back be enabled? Will any certificates of COVID-19 infection or quarantine be required? The latest information we have from the airport is that restrictions on the closure will be lifted or not continued today. So they expect Easyjet to start flying on the 22nd of May and British Airways on the 30th of June. However, these are just plans, and we don't know if the economic situation will allow them to return so quickly. Yesterday, Boris Johnson announced there will be a 14-day quarantine for everyone going into the UK. And anyway, in Slovenia, there's a 7-day quarantine at the moment. So these are the restrictions, which are not so optimistic also for Slovenian companies working with the UK. As we only have 6 minutes left, I would kindly ask maybe Andrei and Matej to say a few remarks at the end on what you think of the UK market, what you believe will the future bring in the next year, and how this can somehow be optimistic also for Slovenian companies. Maybe Andrei, you first.
I wanted to say Matej first, but okay. I think the UK market will not be a big different to the other Europe market. I mean, because of COVID, we will have all consequences, and we'll not see something completely different in UK as another part of the world. So I think also the numbers you showed on the beginning, the GDP will drop for 5-6%, in Slovenia for 8-9, etc. So it's similar numbers. Let's see what will happen on the end. It's a more question to me how different countries will take measures or release the measures, and we are talking about the second, third, fourth wave, and also how to live and how to work, having in mind this COVID will be there or will be among us. So I think not big specific to UK market as the rest of Europe. So we need to take chance and work with UK.
So it's like my turn. Well, I said already, I would like to have a Brexit a little bit earlier to have some practice, because this is not a situation that's, well, it's not similar at all, but it's problematic. Also, Andy mentioned go there, meet people, you know, contact. So we are used to, I still think that doing business is about, you know, being in direct contact, almost touching each other, not and this virtual digital habits that we have got now are just not going to work. But unfortunately, I was listening to Prime Minister Johnson yesterday, and really I was shocked a little bit when he said, like, we will not be doing anything till the 1st of July. So this is extending enormously. And then I talked to my daughter. She's living in London, and she said, "What are those cyclists in Ljubljana? Are you crazy?" I said, "Listen, it's a demonstration. This is a way of expressing. People are expressing their feelings about. They are not very satisfied about this military way of living that we are having now." But she just said, "You are crazy." So I think also the feeling, just upon that, I think the feeling in Britain is more like this. We are just going to have to wait, and for how long?
And I think one comment, as you said already before, we need to go there and meet people. After being closed in our houses for a couple of weeks or months, I think we'll be more eager to go out and meet partners. So it's our human nature to meet and see.
Yes, human nature, yeah. Well, I would like to thank you, gentlemen, for your time today, and I would also like to thank all the participants who are listening. We will send the presentation. Let me kindly ask you if you can take just a few moments to fill out the survey which you have on the Q&A. Let's stay hopeful, let's stay optimistic. The UK is still the 5th largest economy in the world, 3rd largest in Europe. Even though Brexit is approaching, we are hopeful that there will be a good agreement with the EU without tariffs, with as few bureaucratic obstacles as possible, and not a big change in standards, we hope, because that's important for Slovenian companies. We hope also that we will be able to organize events live very soon and see you also in person and organize roundtables. With that, I wish you all the best, stay healthy. And the UK and also our chamber is still open for business. I'm going to conclude with that and wish you all a good afternoon. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.